You're listening to the Chris the Freelancer podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Chris the Freelancer podcast. This is the podcast all about location independence, time freedom, and living life on your terms. Each week, we interview a new guest on the show, and today I'm sitting down with Zack Young, an expert, entrepreneur, freelancer, and good friend of our first guest on the podcast, Blake. In today's episode, we talk about the early beginnings of Zack's freelance career, how he started a successful business in college and scoring gigs in New York, London, and now San Francisco. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 2 with Zack Young.
For show notes and more, visit christhefreelancer.com.
Hey, Zack.
Hello.
How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
How you doing?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm good. Where are you at the moment? You're in San Francisco, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful weather. It's a bit windy, but nice.
Okay, because it's summer there, right?
It's getting into summer now, yeah.
Okay. Last time I was in San Francisco, it was raining like nothing else, and you couldn't even go outside, but I think that was spring for them, like early spring, so close to the winter, I think.
It sucks to be in a country with bad weather, right?
Yeah. I guess you would know about that being in coming from the UK, right?
Honestly, it's one of the biggest reasons of leaving, you know? The weather was horrendous.
Awesome. Yeah, we were talking to Blake in the first episode of the podcast, and we sort of heard like his story and a bit about like you two collaboratively deciding to set off on your adventure, and here you are, you're the flashy digital nomad, bouncing back between San Francisco, New York, London, and we were just joking about how all the other digital nomads are bouncing. Well, I guess the ones that I'm associating with at the moment are bouncing back between places like Chiang Mai, Vietnam, Bali.
Chiang Mai is a mecca, right?
Yeah, it's crazy out here, man. Yeah, it's have you been here or?
No, I've not yet, to be honest.
Okay.
I really want to check it out.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I thought to start with, we could go back to the beginning, how you went from starting your career to where you are now. So I believe you were at university with Blake. Is that where the story begins?
Sort of. I guess the nomadic journey started just after university. So during university, I started a startup which didn't quite go the direction we wanted it to, but we spent 2.5 years building it up. Okay. And obviously through that process, we raised money, and I created a great network and learned a lot of things about startups and starting up and the mistakes you make, and just all the different challenges which come with starting a business, tech business.
Awesome.
So that kind of wrapped itself up around 3 or 4 months after I left uni with Blake, and obviously Blake and I moved in together at that point as well. So for me, I was kind of looking for that next opportunity, and I ended up working in London, and we were there for about 18 months, and I worked for 3 different companies over that period. Mm-hmm. And it helped me grow, and I definitely don't regret those opportunities, but equally I just felt like something was missing. I felt like, especially after having been through the 2.5 year journey of starting up, I just felt like I was just lost.
Okay.
So I was kind of craving something else, and I started reading a lot on Medium in particular, and watching lots of YouTube videos of people just doing stuff which they were passionate about.
Okay.
And the truth is, Blake and I actually booked our flights, way before we told anyone. We just sort of booked them, and we knew we were going to leave whatever, because I knew that if we didn't book them, it would just be one of those dreams which never becomes reality.
Yeah,
and
totally.
We just got excited about it, and it kind of kept us going through that kind of rough patch in London.
Awesome. So let's go back to the startup. Can you tell us about how you sort of started that, and what made you want to start a startup in the beginning?
Sure. So I was freelancing with, whilst at university, I was freelancing with a local property developer who wanted support with his sort of online presence. He was starting from scratch. So I was working with him, and there was kind of one day when he said, hey, Zach, have you never thought about starting your own business? Because I'd helped him in different ways. And I actually had an idea at the time which coincided with my kind of problems renting property.
Yeah.
So we're trying to rent a property as a student. I think everyone has this challenge of, rogue landlords, and the journey was filled with paper, and it was just the archaic mess,
Okay.
So I mentioned this to him, and he said, hey, find out what it's going to cost to start up, and I'll invest in it. So that's kind of how we started that journey, and he invested in it and became sort of co-founder. And through that journey, we went to raise more money, and we launched in different cities in the UK.
I think that's a great place to start a startup, is when you're actually like working in something and can identify a problem, and then you kind of build your solution to that, and that way like you're in it, you have that domain knowledge, and you can say that you can actually see that there's a problem there. You're not just coming up with a solution as something that doesn't actually affect people. So I think that's like a really good experience to get into to startups.
I think it really helps. I think you need to understand the problem and the challenge really well.
Yeah.
Because if you don't understand that challenge and you don't have that personal problem, you're going to have to find people who do have that challenge, and that's going to be a problem for you in itself.
Awesome. And so you were freelancing like for a while, obviously, and you were freelancing back in university. When did that sort of start, and how did you, like a lot of, like for me at least, I wasn't considering freelancing until I decided I wanted to be a digital nomad, and had that I wanted that flexibility so that I could travel. But it sounds like you were involved in the freelancing like from the very beginning.
I started freelancing pretty much as soon as I had a bank account. Anybody who needed help with their computer, whether it be learning how to use it or they had a problem with their computer, that was kind of how I first started locally when I was in school.
Okay.
And beyond that, I started like a web hosting business where I bought servers and rented off pieces of them. And
wow.
That was when I was like 16, 17. I just wanted to make money, and I wanted to create something which had customers, and I've just never stopped since, really.
Would you consider yourself, and I guess it's hard to sort of give yourself this label, but would you consider yourself a born entrepreneur? Like it sounds like these things, just like the motivations for you to do this stuff kind of came naturally.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I definitely feel like I've always been inclined to challenge, solve problems and challenge different things which are already in existence.
Okay.
I just can't sit around and accept things, how they are, if there is a better way of doing them.
Okay.
So I guess, in a sense, you could say that I feel like it's always been there.
It's always been like that?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so after the startup, you had a short career in London. Well, was it short, or because you decided that you wanted to get out pretty soon, right?
Yeah, I think with the end of the startup, combined with the chaos of London, the high cost of living, the stress of commuting every day, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Just the nightmare of those big cities. I think it all kind of come together as actually I wasn't happy. I felt empty, and that's when I think 4 or 5 months into London, when we just booked the flight, we had this discussion and we said, okay, we want to do it. We're going to do it. Let's just book it.
Okay. And where were you before London?
So we were living in Southampton.
Oh, okay.
At uni.
Do people have this perception that working in the big city is like a dream come true, or like, oh my god, we're going to London and it's going to be amazing? Or did you have that kind of idea before, or was this like, okay, that's where the opportunities are for good jobs, I'm going to go there?
I think everyone thinks that, and it's such an illusion.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of that coming of age journey of being in a city, but I think if people are honest with themselves, especially if they're just graduating, so then they might be just early 20s.
Yeah.
I think if they're honest with themselves, actually, what they've entered is hell.
Yeah.
They've went from this tranquil place of being a student, having freedom to do what you want when you want, to actually working underneath somebody. And unless you're very fortunate to get a job which has some sort of substance and has some passion in the beginning, the likelihood is you're going to spend maybe 3 years before you get anything which you care about.
Okay. And what sort of work were you doing back then? Is it the similar stuff as what you're doing now?
Sort of similar. My first job actually went terribly wrong, in the sense that it was sold to me as something very different to what it turned out to be.
Okay.
I was basically helping a very traditional travel company, a publishing company, evolve from being this publishing-based business to actually a web business.
Yeah.
So I was part of this small team they'd hired to actually kind of transform them into this web e-commerce business. But it was a very challenging few months, to be honest. The core team was still very rigid and stuck in this legacy business mindset.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't stick around there very long, to be honest. I was looking for something else pretty quickly, because obviously I wanted something which I could actually make a difference in.
Yeah.
So then I went on to work with a really great agency, a digital agency, which basically helps companies with their employer branding. So how do you be perceived to potential candidates as a good employer to work for? So they help lots of companies establish that branding and try and attract kind of higher quality candidates.
Okay. And was the startup experience really valuable for you, like both from applying for jobs and also from a perspective of having that building those skills over the course of the startup?
Completely. Yeah. I think the startup experience really helped me. 2.5 years running that business probably was equivalent to maybe 5, 6, or even 7 years worth of just general commercial experience.
Okay,
because
cool.
I had to do everything, and I had to chase things, and I wasn't working 40 hours a week. I was working 100 hours a week.
Wow.
So it was, I think I just grew so fast during that period.
Yeah, because how old are you now? You're
27.
27, and you're doing quite well for yourself. Did you and Blake? How did you and Blake meet?
So we met in first year of uni.
Oh, okay.
On just one of the social events, and we become part of the we were managing one of the hall's residents marketing.
Okay, cool.
Teams.
I see. All right, so you had the career in London. You realized that you wanted a change, so you booked this flight with Blake. And what was kind of your plan on the work stuff? Was it easy to transition what you do into remote work?
So we had this plan. I felt like I'd had enough experience to find new clients, and even if I wasn't getting paid perhaps what I wanted to be paid, I felt like I could find work. So crucial thing was just getting my online brand updated and make sure that all the clients I work with was listed on there. And when we went away, then I started applying for lots of jobs on People Per Hour. So I'd go on and look for these small pieces of work which people wanted support with, whether it be strategy or social media management or social media content, usually in the realms of that sort of space, a little bit of SEO, and it kind of started from there. So I was working with usually, again, quite small companies on quite small jobs of maybe between 2 and 5 days. And I managed to pick up about 3 clients before Christmas, so a client a month basically. Wow. Between when we left in October and Christmas time. But the big win for me was a startup in New York which got in touch with me without me even applying for them. Yeah. So I had a really strong profile on People Per Hour, and they got in touch asking me to help them with their social strategy for their crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah.
And that's been my core client, which has filled up 70% of my time since, because the crowdfunding campaign raised $1 million, and off the bat of that, then they've now kind of contracted me further. So it's been a great win.
So yeah, it looks like you did pretty well at that that one. What was their funding goal?
Well, we originally set it at $25,000.
Okay.
With the intention that we might get between 100 and 200.
Okay.
But we actually ended up raising 950,000. So
Jeez.
It was a great win.
Yeah. And what was it about your profile? Did they tell you what it was about your profile that they were particularly impressed by and made them invite you to apply for the job?
It was multiple factors. One of the big ones was LinkedIn. They really, and this is one of the things which I've learned in the past couple of years, LinkedIn is a really useful asset, and recommendations on LinkedIn are crucial.
Okay.
So they could see that other people have worked with me and their opinion through that process. And the second one was activity. So me writing, writing my blog and updating my social feed. Mm-hmm. That was a big part of it too.
Okay, cool. And anywhere along would you attribute any of your success to university, or is it seems like the practical experience you got from starting that startup and freelancing was where you built those skills, but how much did you get out of university itself, do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the practical skills have definitely come away from education. Yeah. But I think I've kind of always went on courses away from traditional education, especially communication courses. So courses which can help me communicate in a stronger manner. I've done a few psychology courses which focus on negotiation.
Okay.
And I think those things have been really useful as well, to help me just become a stronger character, ensure that I communicate on a level which works for most people.
Okay, and these are online courses, are they, or?
It's been a mix. I've done some courses in person, 1 or 2 day sort of courses, and then I've done online courses. I done a course 2.5, 3 years ago, a coaching course, a neurolinguistic programming course in the UK, which lasted for almost a year. That was kind of like part time. So these have all been useful skills to bring in. But I would say it's experience. I think it's a mindset. You just have to try. If you're not fully certain on something, go for it anyway. Find the right advice. Find people who are doing it already. And it kind of works usually.
Okay, cool. All right, so getting back to the story, you set off. What was your first stop after London?
We went straight to Thailand.
Thailand, okay. And how did you navigate the sort of remote work with travel? Was that an easy transition, or? We
were really dedicated. So one of the key things was, I was really conscious about not really drinking, making sure that that was the priority, because obviously if the work thing didn't form itself and keep us going, then we would have had to find something which we didn't want to do. So it was like real structure. The internet challenges, were definitely present. I'm sure you've had many a time when you've had to move or whatever.
It's been pretty good. I usually stick with locations where they're near like a co-working space. And actually, I'm pretty sure the internet in Thailand is better than Australia, which is ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Yeah, there's this whole debate in Australia about something called the National Broadband Network. And there's like two sides. There's like, we should like get better internet, and then other people like it's going to cost too much. Let's not spend money on that. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure the internet's not going to be too useful moving forward for our nation, But
that's crazy.
Yeah. Cool. So where did you go in Thailand? Were you in some of the party islands, Koh Phangan or anything like that?
Yeah, so we went to we did Bangkok for a few days, just to get adjusted. Then we flew down to Samui actually,
Okay.
just for like 1 night or 2 nights, and then over to Koh Phangan where we spent all the time we were there. We spent on the kind of quiet side of the island.
Yeah.
Really quiet side. Then we went over to Koh Tao, I think.
Okay. Were there any issues with, I guess, there's this issue with like remote work and travel that a lot of people have, and I call it getting caught up with tourists, and that's kind of having you have this different way of traveling where you do have responsibilities, you do have some work to do, but a lot of people don't understand that, and sometimes you meet like travelers that are just like, yeah, this is my vacation, let's party, and there's that disconnect there. Did you find that as a challenge at all? Or were you kind of living in your sort of digital nomad kind of world and it wasn't too much of a problem?
No, we definitely had that problem. We met so many people who, we were being really conscious about what we were spending initially, because obviously we were kind of on a budget. So we were staying in places which were, kind of low to middle ground, which attracted travelers and backpackers and stuff. And we just felt like really antisocial, saying like no. Like pretty much all the time we would say no. But I knew that this was the only way to really gain momentum, because hangovers are horrible in themselves. They make you depressed. They kind of set you back. You're not in a good frame of mind when you've got a hangover, and especially when you're trying to create something of value and shape your life, and you're going through so much change. I think that's just a bad idea. I think it's just it's a quick fire way to get back to where you started.
Yeah, so I know what you mean. I don't usually drink too much, but there's some guys here that a few Aussies actually, and they're just like, yeah, have a drinking night with us, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess like I haven't sort of had a drinking night in a long time, so I was like, yeah, let's do it. And God, yesterday was tough.
Aussies are always wanting to drink, right?
Yeah, like I had that moment like, oh, I'm never drinking again. But the funny thing is, like, it wasn't my idea to go drinking anyway. And I kind of have this thing where it's half, I kind of phrase it as a joke, but it's kind of true that I have this bedtime that I have to meet. And of course I don't have to meet a certain bedtime, but I have that there to just like as a rule to live by, because if I go to bed at because I'm getting up at 7 every day, and if I go to bed at 3 a.m., my clock is going to be off. And in fact, yesterday I woke up at midday and I was just like, damn, I have to get back into the proper clock. Like, I'm not going to let myself. Few of them nomads I've met here that just run with it. Like, they're like, oh yeah, I know I'm going to be going out every weekend till late, so I just pretty much live nocturnally during the week. There's a few of them like that. And I mean, that's one of the things you can do is, when you work remotely and have that freedom, is to work strange hours. But I try to keep it to like normal office hours. I don't know about you.
I think when you're starting out, it's more difficult to be hungover all the time and feel motivated to do it, because if you haven't worked on your own before and you're used to working sort of under somebody, I think you just need to have that discipline of focus, really.
Yeah.
But I think once you get into it, then you can be a bit more creative with your time and not feel guilty, I guess, which is the key thing.
Yeah.
Spending like half a day in bed or even a day in bed when you just have had a long night.
Yeah. And did you find, I mean, you've done the freelancing before, but did you find, like, what were the biggest challenges when you started working remotely? Was there anything that was particularly challenging? So
I think the greatest thing is getting trust from people when they know you're in a different country.
Yeah.
And especially because, I was working with people in the UK. My strategy was finding clients in the UK was the key thing for me, because the pound obviously is stronger.
Yeah.
And if you're billing £200 in per day in the UK, then you're probably only going to be billing about $250 in America. So the value for your time is a lot greater in the UK.
Okay.
So for me, I was trying to find UK clients, and clients in the UK are much more right now kind of fearful of you being out of the country,
Yeah.
especially in Asia. If you tell them that you're in Asia, the press kind of makes you believe that you're not going to have any power or internet, or there's going to be an earthquake, and you're going to be unreachable. So for me, I had to think about that before I spoke to these people. And I set up a Skype in number with a London line, and I would always speak to the clients or potential clients at a time which they were happy with. I would always open up the call saying, it's been a lovely week, let's hope the summer arrives soon, or whatever the weather would be like. I would always try and bring it into the conversation.
Okay.
So then there was an impression of me being very close to them.
Nice.
So then I would gain trust quite quickly.
Okay.
And they would always have this UK number should they need to contact me away from email. But I mean, it didn't happen very much, but they had that number, which made them feel safe.
So with the sort of the building the trust, working remotely, were you ever tempted just to say that you were in the UK, or did you imply from like what you were saying that you were in the UK?
So I would usually say I'm away on business at the moment.
Oh yeah.
So I wouldn't say that I'm actually living out of the country. I would say that I'm, on business in. I would always use a city which they would be familiar with and trust as well. So I might say Singapore or Kuala Lumpur, for example.
Oh, okay.
Would be better places to say than Bangkok.
Yeah.
Because you don't really associate Bangkok as a business city usually.
Yeah. I think this is something that'll probably change as time goes on, though, and like remote work becomes more common. I don't know. You think that's going to be the case? I hope so.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think it will change. I just think right now people have the option to hire locally.
Yeah.
And they, might prefer that than hiring somebody who they know is in Chiang Mai, for example. Okay. So I think it's just about being careful about how you pitch it, rather than, from the outset being really transparent, which might work for some people. Just making sure that they are kind of comfortable and understand that, you do have internet, you do have power, you have a structure, you're reliable, you're credible. The things which, they can perhaps gain when they meet you, but they can't gain when you're speaking to them on a call or on your Skype. So I think all those things have to be kind of ticked off before they can fully give you trust over anything which is integral to their business.
Okay, cool.
Which is obviously where the money is. If you've got a position, or you've got a project which is integral to the a part of that business or the ongoing life of that business, then you can obviously bill for that.
Okay, cool. And I guess on the other side of remote work and travel, the travel side, have you done like much, I guess, sort of travel experiences, or has it really been like for you finding locations that you like to sort of settle in, and then obviously recently you've had some opportunities come up where you've gone to the actual client in the US and worked with them. So like, was it with the travel, or what was kind of your motivations there?
So before the lifestyle change, I've done lots of long not super long actually, kind of stretches of maybe 3-4 week vacations, where I just wanted to be there, but actually could only spend a holiday there because of annual leave or whatever. But now, I think the initial structure was, move around every 2 weeks, keep things fresh, keep the novelty going, whilst having some sort of structure. Yeah. But I think what I'm moving towards now is ideally just kind of having a month in somewhere and then moving on, so you have that kind of freshness. But also for the cost of living, if you're getting an Airbnb or you're renting a room for a month, it's usually 30-50% cheaper to do it on a monthly basis than doing it on a nightly basis or even a weekly basis.
Yeah,
so
of course.
that's the crucial factor as well.
Yeah, and even like 2 weeks can be more expensive than a month.
Yeah, it's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, like Denise and I have this decision to make, I guess. I've got a contract here in Chiang Mai that's going to be ending halfway through a month. And so we're like, should we get 2 weeks or should we just like book another month in Chiang Mai? And I said to her, we should like do the math and see if the 2 weeks might be like as expensive as a month. And if that's the case, yeah, might as well just stay a month, you know?
Yeah, just hang fire because you can usually save like a fair whack.
Yeah. And one of the other things I've found just on accommodation is I had this idea that Airbnb is like always going to be cheaper, but it's funny, I've actually found that on a per nightly basis you can get like hotels like for cheaper than Airbnb in certain cities. So just like a tip for anyone out there is like, you know, make sure you shop around.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think especially in the bigger cities, you can always find like better deals on the ground. There's like a safety element for Airbnb, which I guess I would pay a little bit more for if I knew that it was all through that platform, because you know that if you've got any problems, then
Yeah.
you just call them up and they will sort you out like instantly.
Yeah, that is the best thing, isn't it?
But if it's a huge difference, you know, if it's like 50% more, then maybe it's worth taking the risk.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so where are the places you've been? You've been on the journey. You've been to Thailand,
Malaysia,
yeah.
Vietnam, Indonesia. I went down to Australia for a couple of weeks as well, just to get a flavor for it.
That. How'd you find that?
I loved Australia.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was just like, I have to talk to Zack about what he finds interesting about Australia, because maybe it's just me because I'm from there, and and Sydney is not much of a city that I like as well. And I think becoming more self-aware, I think it's because I'm not really fond of these really big, busy cities where you know, you can just feel the rat race around you. I don't know. What did you like about Sydney?
It's a weird feeling. Obviously the weather, you know, that kind of Sydney ticked that box for me.
Yeah.
I liked how far the pound goes in Sydney.
Yeah.
You know, pretty much $2 for a pound, which is something which I guess only somebody from the UK could understand. When you're changing money, it feels like you're getting double. Maybe you're only getting about 20% more.
Yeah.
But then I think the culture, like the people who I met in the 2.5 weeks I was there was so friendly, and they just had a very different kind of outlook on life. It was a much more relaxed pace of life rather than what I was used to in London.
Okay, wow.
It was definitely not perfect, you know. I mean, I could see the rat race and I could see the challenges of being in a city.
Yeah.
But I loved the fact that, you know, there's beaches within 15-20 minutes away. How the weekends on the Sunday the travel was free, which was kind of a nice way for people to get around the city and be healthy.
And
the nightlife was good.
Where did you meet these locals, I'm assuming, that you met? Just, I don't know, like chatting, because you were there by yourself, right?
I was there by myself. I stayed in a hostel initially.
Okay.
So I met some people in a hostel. I think I was in a hostel for 5 nights, just because I was being really conscious about the cost of living in Sydney. But then I stayed in a hotel for a few nights and just maintained the contact with the people who were there. There was a lot of people from the UK, you know, going for a year or 2 year on a gap year.
Yeah.
There was a few Europeans I met, a Dutch guy and a French guy, who also were there on a year kind of working visa. I felt like the people I'd met were seeking similar things to me.
Okay.
You know, even if they were on a 1 year working visa and they were working in a bar, I felt like they were trying to search for something greater from life, I guess, than just what a lot of people accept.
Okay.
I think the the biggest downside to being in Australia was the time difference. Like on the West Coast in San Francisco here, the time difference to work for Europe is, only very barely manageable.
Yeah.
Because it's just a whole day apart, like it's a real challenge. I felt my productivity drop dramatically when I was there because I was having to wait a lot longer for emails to, come back to me. I was replying at the wrong times when my clients perhaps were expecting, responses within 4-6 hours maybe. They were getting a response which was maybe 8 to 10 hours on average, which therefore any decisions got longer to close. So it definitely made a big difference, and I'm feeling that strain now with my clients in London, having to try and squeeze in Skype calls as I wake up at 8 a.m. Because it's their end of their day. I've only got between 8 and 10 in the morning of my time to do any Skype calls before the day's over for them. So it's a real challenge.
Yeah, true. And even getting this call together was, we had like a small window where it's like, what time is it where you are? It's in the afternoon, right?
10 to 6, yeah.
10 to 6, yeah. So like it's 7:50 a.m. here.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I wanted to get back on my proper sleep cycle anyway, and I get up at 6 or 7 during the week anyway. I'm kind of like one of the first people to the co-working space, actually. I have this little bit of a game with the guy I'm working with, and we try and like beat each other to the office. It's like, it's not an expectation. Like I don't know if he really cares if I'm there earlier than him or not, but we've kind of turned it into a game because I think he's used to being the first one in the office, and then after like the first 2 weeks of working with him, I'd like beat him every day just by like 10 or 20 minutes, and he's just like, damn, I gotta beat you. And then now he's beating me, and it's become a competition where I've gotten up half an hour earlier to get to the office. But I mean, it works for me. I think I'm a morning person. I mean, I'm a deep sleeper, and when the alarm goes off in the morning, usually it's just like coming out of a coma. But once I'm up, like after I get through the first half an hour, I'm like, yes, I'm glad I'm up this early. And it's strange. It might be strange to some people that, I kind of work in an office environment and get up at the same time I would back home. But for me, I'm not trying to avoid anything, any of the office environment back home. I'm just just wanting to be in a different location, basically.
I think if you can get up in the morning and do that, then your productivity must go through the roof.
Yeah. Well, there's books like that, The Miracle Morning and stuff like that, where they just talk about, get up as early as possible and your productivity is higher. I don't know. I think that people can be productive being like nocturnal for sure. Like some people just work better at different times of the day. But for me, at least, if I get up at midday, I feel like half the day is gone, and I feel like, I don't know, yesterday, like, because I had that hangover, I was just like, okay, I'm going to have to work at night now. And, I just took my computer to camp, which is like this co-working space / cafe here. And I just, I had a video to get out for the channel and some stuff to do. I had to prepare for this interview as well. I've got some, Skype recording equipment now. Well, it's just software.
Awesome.
Yeah, so just had to do some research into that. But yeah.
How are you finding your co-work tour, I guess?
Yeah, so for people that have seen some of my stuff, that you know that I love co-working, and yeah, it's different to like Bali where we met, because Bali, it doesn't have this. The internet overall is bad, and it doesn't have this coffee shop culture where people will go from coffee shop to coffee shop working there and having a day there basically working and use that as their like office. But Chiang Mai has that. Like there are so many cafes to work from, and that's part of the reason why I was going to do this article on like all the places to work in Chiang Mai, but you can simply work anywhere and everywhere basically. Yeah, so the scene here is, the co-working space is great, I love it, but the community is very spread out. So it's not all based around one co-working space like in Bali, because, you know, a lot of people here like shopping around for different cafes and like the feeling of having, you know, the classic office of the day.
Yeah.
It's become a thing now. And that's
different Instagram shot.
Yeah. And I've seen some of my like friends doing that office of the day, and I'm just like, maybe I need to get out of the co-working space and try out some new places. But I guess the problem with that is, you know, once you have this reliable place to work and you know what you like, then that's another decision that you don't have to make, and you're not taking any risks with where you're working. You know it's going to be good, you know it's stable and reliable. And that goes with any city. Now I'm at the point in Chiang Mai where you know, I feel very comfortable and I know where everything is that, you know, I would need. So
definitely. And I think being in those co-working spaces, it's like you feed off other people's energy.
Yeah.
Which
for sure.
You can't quite get in the coffee shops. You know, if you just go and sit and have a coffee, and you don't really get to see and speak to people as much as you do in, you know, in a co-working cafe where, you know, you've got the kitchen or whatever. So yeah, I think that's such a big advantage, you know, all the energy from people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Even like the work I'm doing now with, like I work for a guy called Max, and he's a location independent entrepreneur. And just the entrepreneurial influence I get from him, it's like entrepreneurship is a religion to him, and I'm kind of like at his church, you know. And he's read so much stuff on marketing and is so driven that you know, he has a lot of, you know, things to say and a lot of knowledge and kind of the vibes as well that, you know, he's setting out is really like making me think more entrepreneurial and pushing me in that direction. So I think that's really important as well.
It's great, really making you grow. I think that's one of the biggest challenges I see with people who have adopted this life. I think the more advanced people who've been doing it for a while, I feel like even they would acknowledge that they haven't grown at the same rate professionally as if they would at home, you know?
Yeah.
They've seen a lot of the world, and they might have covered their living costs, but they haven't grown you know, professionally. They've not been learning as much as they should have, basically, and commercially they're not always in tune with the latest standard.
No,
so I think it's important to be...
Yeah, in fact, we were talking about that at dinner actually with Blake and a few other friends here in Chiang Mai, and this we have a friend called Graham, and he was talking about how through freelancing he was able to achieve like this much faster career growth than sort of being in a like employed and moving up the ladder kind of thing. And you know, he just went from, you know, basically went from 5 to 10, you know, in, you know, between contracts. And we were just talking about how, you know, freelancing and kind of, you know, running your own kind of business you can accelerate your growth and grow as fast as you can, basically. There's no limits, I guess.
Definitely. You just have to be committed to, you know, focusing on growth.
Yeah.
Not letting yourself like just fall behind and you know, lose track of what's going on in the world.
One of the things I'm like really I don't know, like I don't know whether envy is the right word or like really impressed by is the fact that you're now writing for publications like Huffington Post and Glassdoor. Can you talk about how that sort of came about?
Sure. So with the Huffington Post, I sent them an article which I'd wrote at the time. It didn't have like a destination as such, and they invited me to become a contributor.
Okay. Is that the usual process?
I think it really depends on what you're writing about, and if you can, and if they can see that you've got some value to add to their website, then I think it's definitely worth a shot.
Yeah.
You have to have something to say which people want to read.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I guess the key thing is being some sort of authority in that space.
Yeah.
Even if you've only had a year's experience in, nomading, for example, then you've got enough experience to talk about it.
Yeah.
Your experience, and likewise for yourself, perhaps speaking about co-working and the challenges of co-working and the benefits of co-working, then, you've got heaps of experience now.
And has that helped your career, have you found, as well? Like, I definitely think it'd be great for your personal brand, for sure, right?
Completely. Writing on any third-party website where they are allowing you to, be part of their brand, enormously helps boost your credibility.
Yeah.
Glassdoor reached out to me on LinkedIn, asking me to write a piece a month for them. And I think, the more stuff you write, then the more opportunity you have of kind of accelerating that and writing for other publications and other websites and doing contributing and guest blogging.
Yeah, awesome. And how is it a struggle to come up with content each month, or however often you write for them?
I try to. I've got a contract once a month for Glassdoor, but I try to write at least one. I aim for 2 pieces a month for everything else, like LinkedIn and my blog and the Huffington Post. Mm-hmm. It is difficult sometimes. I think when you're focusing on client work, a lot of the time, it does sacrifice your personal creativity. You want to be a 5-star consultant freelancer to your clients, and you want to give them the majority of your energy. So then the results are obviously, that the outputs you get from the work you put in are great for the client. Yeah. So by doing that, you naturally sacrifice your own creativity and some of the ideas which you can put into your own things. So I feel like I go through these periods where, when I'm working on myself and my business, then I've got, ideas coming every day and free-flowing ideas, which what I've started to do is just write them all down and create these documents ready for, the substance. But beyond that, the other time I'm working with clients, so sorry, the noise in it.
Yeah, what's going on in the background there?
I'm in a burger bar and these guys are shouting.
A burger bar.
Life of the Nomad.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi in Starbucks was like half a meg, so I had to find somewhere a little bit more stable.
Awesome, I appreciate that.
So just to round off, I was just saying, I just now write the article headline and save it ready for a time when perhaps I'm low on ideas.
Yeah, so you have like article ideas and sort of list, and then you can expand on that when the time comes, I guess.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're getting to the end of the allotted time, so I just wanted to ask if you could distill all your learnings and your advice into like a few minutes. What would you tell viewers? I mean, I guess the subject of this show, at least for now, is how to become location independent and learning from the stories of other digital nomads. But if you could give a few pieces of advice, what would you tell people?
I think the crucial thing is, this lifestyle is a frame of mind, and you have to be prepared to purely focus on covering your living costs, and not becoming, rich and wealthy. That's a crucial thing to learn and be happy with, because I think there's a lot of nomads who are doing quite well now, but most of the time, at the best, you're only going to earn, $2,000 or $3,000 a month, perhaps. If you're fully booked, which is a great amount of money to work part time at your leisure, working on things which perhaps you want to work on.
Yeah.
So if you're happy with that and you're comfortable with that decision, then make sure there's enough preparation before you take that leap. I think the crucial thing is, having a little bit of savings, having access to credit, should things become tough, making sure that you maintain an address in your home country, maintaining a phone number in your home country, and making sure that your online profiles are all up to date. This is way before you leave. And then having some structure, I think that's a crucial thing. The first maybe 6 months, having some structure where you do have travel and you do have some fun, but ultimately you're on a path. You're going somewhere. I think if you just go and you're in limbo and you don't know where you're going to go next week, then I think that might be a bit too daunting it would be for me anyway. I think if I was just starting out, I would need to kind of satisfy the need to feel secure, my human needs to feel safe and secure, and I'd have to do that by having some sort of schedule with bookings in place for at least 3 months anyway. And I think finally, just expose yourself to other people doing this, whether it be reading them on Medium, or whether it be going to co-working spaces and meeting people who are already living this life, because you will understand very quickly the highs and the lows of this lifestyle. And the crucial thing is making sure that you don't feel alone, and surrounding yourself with people who share the same challenges with you and, understand you, I guess. That's going to be integral to you maintaining it and being happy with this life. You might be earning $10,000 a month, but if you have nobody who understands you and nobody living the same life as you, who you kind of speak to on a regular basis, then you're going to feel very lonely and perhaps question why you came out in the first place. Yeah. So I think that's really essential.
Yep, totally get you. All right, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with us.
Oh no, Chris, thank you. It's been good.
Yeah, good talk. Awesome. All right, have a good one.
You too. Take care.
Alright guys, thanks for listening. If you want to find out more about Zack as well as everything else we talked about in today's episode, you can find all of that information and more in the show notes. Just head to christhefreelancer.com/podcast/Zack-Young. That's christhefreelancer.com/ZACK-YOUNG. And as always, thanks for listening, and we hope to see you in the next episode with Colin Pomeroy.